Let's discuss one of my favorite and yet least talked about business topics, risk. Today we'll talk about what is risk, risk in business, why it may not be for you, how risk affects money, valuing risk, and then we'll do a brief summary of it. Risk is one of the most important aspects of business, but it is probably the least talked about. Most business textbooks have one paragraph, maybe a page on it. And that can even include finance textbooks. Kind of scary. So what is risk? Risk is the chance that something bad will happen. Okay, so kind of obvious, but a more formal one is it's the potential to lose money or time or not be able to reach a firm's goals. Yeah. Examples, lots and lots of examples. Customer no pays. Critical supplier goes out of business. Partner key employee dies, quits, steals. Unexpected revenue drop because of social media, weather, unexpected competition, pandemics, whatever. Product quality problems, recalls. Your risk is higher than your competitors. And poor decisions on the above. So, yeah. And that list goes on and on. Let's be upfront. Risk is part of business. You cannot eliminate it. You can minimize it, and you can minimize the effects with risk preparedness. You need to have a list of critical risks. So these are risks that'll put you out of business, and you should have an idea for minimizing the impact of each. So if you have one key employee and they quit, they go somewhere else, okay, you should have a plan to minimize that. It is part of business. If it sounds like gambling, yes, it is. If you love gambling, business may not be for you. If you hate gambling, business may not be for you. If you can accept reasonable chances, then it may be. Everything carries risks. Investment decisions, hiring decisions. I know of a case where two MBAs bankrupted a Fortune 500 company with, I don't want to use the words, but anyway, yeah, things they did caused the company to make poor decisions, and it broke the company. Bank of Scotland had one department, 245 million pounds, that's pounds sterling, British, bad loans because of bribery. Barings Bank Singapore branch lost 1.3 billion in fraud because of one person. Yeah. Suppliers. You trust products from suppliers, you get burned. You trust services, they don't show up. Monetary, Forex, borrowing, lending, all these things have risks. So borrowing, yeah, maybe you borrow on a sliding scale interest and it starts skyrocketing, or you lend to somebody and they don't pay you back. Markets, well, competitors. Your competitor comes out with something that just blows you away. Are you prepared for that? Customers, you have one or two major customers and one of them quits you. International events, yes, 9/11, things like that. So risk affects your revenue, your expense, and your profits. The higher the risk in an area, the more income you need to offset that risk. So for example, if you give customers credit, a certain percent are not going to pay, and typically it's around 20% in a lot of businesses. You need to include the cost of no pays into your pricing, because if you don't, you'll be losing money. You should demand discounts from less reliable suppliers. So if suppliers are bad about being late or shipping stuff that doesn't meet needs, yeah, you need to get lower prices because you're accepting risk. You need to pay low-risk employees more or give them other benefits. So employees that are very good, show up to work always, can handle customers better, whatever it is, they deserve more money, and that's why they deserve more money. Lower risk income can bear lower profit margins. So if you have a low risk business where money just comes in from a lot of different sources, very reliable, you can afford a little lower profit margins. I'm not saying for free, but a little lower. For customers with a long history of good credit, you can afford to give them discounts or maybe lower some fees on credits. You can afford to pay a little bit more to reliable suppliers. If that supplier always nails it, always gives you the best quality, delivers on time, yeah, you can afford to pay them a little bit more. And you can afford to pay high-risk employees less or replace them if that's the plan. So at my grocery store, I can buy a watermelon. I can buy it cut or I can buy it uncut. The cut watermelon costs 30% more. Why? Well, because once I see inside there, what happens to the risk? Yeah, this is all about risk. Uncut, both the store and the customer are sharing risk on it being good or bad. So maybe the store sells me a beautiful watermelon that's really great, uncut. They could have charged more for that watermelon, but they don't know. And the customer doesn't know. The customer's afraid to buy it uncut because, well, it could be a great watermelon or it could be a bad watermelon. So when it's uncut, we're both sharing some risk. When it's cut, the store accepts most of the risk. Because once they cut it, you can see inside and see if it's a good watermelon or a bad watermelon. And if it's a bad watermelon, they get to throw it away. So they took 100% of the risk. So risks have cost and they have value. Microsoft had a company called Skype, and I guess they're putting it out of business as far as I can tell. They had a pay-as-you-go international phone service. So you paid some money and they charged you by the minute to talk, and you could do internationally or wherever. So you put in X amount of dollars and it was debited per minute of use. They changed that to a monthly payment plan. So then what happened to risk and what happened? Yeah, where did the risk go? So who got more risk, who got less? Well, on a monthly subscription, the company is taking a lot less risk because they're getting paid every month regardless of how much you use it. So the risk shifted from the company assuming the risk to they shifted it on me. They took less risk because they're getting paid on a monthly fee. Nothing in business happens without risk shifting. And yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of shifting, sometimes it's a lot. But anytime you're dealing with another company, you need to understand who is accepting the risk in this deal, who has got most of the risk, who has got less of the risk, and if anything changes, what happened to that risk. So this is a little bit mathy, but I'm going to ask you to bear with me because this is extremely important. If nothing else, you need to understand the concept. So it is called expected value. And the mathematical formula is expected value. It looks like that. It is equal to 1 minus risk times the amount of money involved. And so, example, we need to sell $10 million in product. There's a 20% chance that customers are not going to pay. So the expected value of that is 1 minus 0.20, that's 20%, times 10 million, that equals $8 million. So what did we just calculate? Well, we predicted we needed $10 million in revenue. And if we ignore the no pays, which are 20%, we fall short by 2 million. So that's the 10 million and we get 8 million. We need 10, we get 8. We're down by 2 million, and a lot of companies have been bit by this. Higher risk requires higher return. So you should calculate risk mentally or physically, get out your calculator for every significant decision. That includes pricing, it includes payroll, it includes purchases, loans, future income, all that stuff. You need to have this in your head, and you say, where does that risk come from? It comes from your experience. Yeah, so the 20% may come from your accounting department, your bookkeeper, or it may come from a past experience. You just know that from past experience, about 1 in 5 people don't pay. So summary, risk is everywhere in business. You have to be aware of risks, but you can't go all obsessive on it because you'll freeze. You need to prioritize risks. You have to ensure that your most critical risks, those that are going to kill your business, have a backup course of action. If you have one key employee and that employee gets hit by a bus and you're out of business, you need to have a backup plan. Maybe you have a secondary employee and you may say, well, that's awfully grim, but I've actually seen this happen. Yeah, you have to have a backup plan. So ensure risk is offset with increased returns. If you own stock or it's in your retirement portfolio, stock prices are currently about 5 times the hard value of a company. And yeah, that does not match production. So what's the hard inventory? That's building land, saleable inventory, etc. So if a company goes broke, they sell all of their assets, that's the hard value. And as a stockholder, that's what you get back. If you paid 5 times more for that share of stock than the company has in hard assets, if they go broke, how much do you get back? You get back 20 cents on the dollar, maybe. So, yeah. Risk is one of the top 5 most important things to understand in business. The other thing is the accounting formula we talked about. We'll talk about some others. Okay, so hang in there. Next video.